want to introduce Willie Denner of Little Seed Farm and the newly launched Agrarian Learning Center, as well as the Good Food Farmer Network is also here today. So these are all, programs that are by farmers for farmers. Education for farmers, distribution networks for farmers, and I'm excited to have Willie here. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Willie.
I'm May. I'm his daughter.
She's going to help me get through these slides. We're farmers. We're going to present on acting toward well-being. My wife, Claudia Kenny, is also presenting here for New York State Ag Mediation Project, which if you don't know about, you should. It's a great resource. And she's going to help Hillary Corson with presenting for Good Food Farmers. It's another project that we're involved with. We're going to talk a little bit about our farm and the Agrarian Learning Center. Claudia and I operate a small organic farm, Little Seed Gardens, in Chatham, New York. We're part of the Agrarian Learning Center in Sharon Springs, which is a Savory Institute hub. I want to start by expressing my gratitude for Just Food for the work that they do, this important work, and your dedication to their mission. Their work's been important to me in being able to get my life from a place in a way that the life in that place could flourish. We did CSA with Just Food back in the 90s in Inwood, Washington Heights, and the Bronx. And that work helped us along our family's journey of learning. And I'd like to share some of that in the hopes that some of what we learned can be useful to you along your paths. Our journey here began from an early life recognition of problems in the world. For me, becoming a person was deeply tied to learning about extinction, slavery, and pollution. Trying to take responsibility for our roles in society and in the community of life made us want to be involved in our subsistence. We went from community gardening in Philadelphia, if anybody knows about Philadelphia Green, to backyard gardening in Hudson, to commercial farming on rented land in Stuyvesant, to buying land in Chatham, where we farmed for the last 16 years. For us, all of what we were seeking, health, connection, contribution, meaning, coherence, brought us to our knees. Our journey led us to Earth. What we discovered on our journey is that we, people, are Earth. We are place. We are life. The stuff of our bodies passes into us from the earth and air and water of specific places. The movements of our bodies, the thoughts of our minds, the emotions of our hearts are powered by photosynthesis, sunlight that fell on particular plants in living ecosystems in real places on this planet. We are nature. Nature is not out there. Nature is in here. We are part of the community of life. We also discovered that we are all farmers. We're an agricultural society. All of us eat from farms. And for every one of us, agriculture is our mode of subsistence. We have divided the way we get our subsistence very finely. So there's some of us who engineer agricultural equipment. Some of us are nurses, or bankers, or logistics managers, or entertainers. Some of us grow crops. But we are all farmers. Agriculture is our subsistence. And I've come to believe that subsistence is at the very core of culture. How we get our lives by acting in nature defines our concepts of ourselves and our world. Agriculture as a mode of subsistence has led us to some misunderstandings that I think are at the root of our ills. If we want to be able to act more effectively toward well-being for ourselves, I think we need to re-examine some deep beliefs. Producing food has led us to believe that we're separate from nature. We see my wheat, my cow, my land. While the tendency of life is to increasing complexity, connection, density, the tendency of agriculture is to simplicity, homogeneity, and separation. The coercion by which we get our lives from places, the elimination of all non-food species that turns ecosystems into low successional deserts, is literally what gives us the power to think and shapes how we go about it. Soil loss, groundwater pollution, heart disease, diabetes, ocean dead zones at deltas, desertification are all signs, in my opinion, of us acting against our nature. So are war, poverty, xenophobia, and the other forms of social disease. So what is our nature, and how can we act coherently toward it? I think this begins by recognizing that we are life. I like the image of the function of life Paul Krafel articulates in his book, Seeing Nature. If you haven't read it, it's a very worthwhile read. He says that what life actually does is slow the entropic loss of sunlight from the planetary envelope. Before life, the sun's energy bounces off of bare rock into the cold void of space. Life captures the force of the sun and makes more and more opportunities to capture and recapture it through growth and decay. Life is an upward spiral of opportunity, collaboration, connection, and complexity. Nature takes form in all its diversity to fulfill this task. And just like barnacles and beetles have forms and behaviors unique to them, so do humans. We are social mammals. Every one of us was born out of the body of our mother and raised through the helplessness of infancy by love to be here today. We have a universally human nature that governs what kinds of actions will meet universal human needs for well-being. So that brings us to Sazinda. Our journey to learn how to act to support well-being led us early on in our farming careers to adopt holistic management. Holistic management is a values-based, testable decision-making framework that's grounded in the understanding of ecosystem processes and human needs for social, ecological, and economic wellness. We're part of the Agrarian Learning Center, a Savory Institute hub that works in the Northeast to foster better decision-making. We collaborate with other learning hubs worldwide, and I want to describe an initiative of the Africa Center for Holistic Management in Zimbabwe, because I think it illustrates acting with a recognition of our nature toward well-being. Africa Center works with all kinds of people, but a lot of their work is with nearby tribal people on communally held lands. We visited Sazinda community in 2014. It's a community of 500 people managing 1,800 acres of severely desertified rangeland. If you're not familiar with Zimbabwe, just let me say that these folks deal with the impacts of a long history of apartheid, conflict, economic chaos, nepotistic government, brittle climate, weathered soils, and suboptimal land management. Africa Center got a small grant for a project in the community that allowed a few community members to be trained in holistic management and a well and a water storage tank to be installed. Those who had learned holistic management taught others, and the community worked together to clarify values, identify decision makers and resources, and create and monitor plans to realize their community-held context. Simply by changing the way they moved their livestock on the land. In a few years, they went from depending almost entirely on foreign food aid to feeding themselves for 3/4 of the year. Working with the neighboring community, grouping their herds together and moving them in a way that mimics the way wild herds in intact, complex ecosystems with predators move, they began to transform the community of life in the place that sustains them. Their health and the health of their livestock began to improve. Their river, for the first time in living memory, flowed through the dry season. Community members who were reluctant to participate initially got drawn closer to the community effort and because they had to repeatedly retrieve their livestock from the better grazing that followed management. The people of Sazinda face incredible challenges, and they have a long way to go before probably any of us might envy their place. But they also have the great gift of access to land. To act toward well-being, I think we have to recognize that there is not a single human need that can be met without the use of land. If we want to fulfill our nature as collaborative, connective, nurturing beings, we have to recognize our connection to land, to the community of life, and to see that all of us share in nature, that all of us depend on land and have an equal claim to its use. We need to make our subsistence more consistent with the expression of our highest nature and learn how to better act toward well-being together. Just putting that up there as an illustration of how conventional the concept of equality in the use of land once was. I hope that some of what has brought us forward on our journey can be of use to you. I'll leave some resources up here for a minute that are useful to us. I've also got a few handouts, little cards on a table outside the auditorium, and I'm open to talking to anybody. I'd love to hear from you if you want to learn more. Thanks so much for listening.